Ron Camp.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Co-chairs Ron Camp and Mitch Meadow, Shoring Committee, or Council, I'm sorry. Purpose to promote and the shoring safety. I should have said it as easy as you. We want to ensure the shoring knowledge gained from years of cumulative experience and resources are spread throughout the industry and into future generations. I'm going to be letting Mitch take over. He's got the bulk of this presentation wired, so go ahead, Mitch.
Hey guys, so yeah, I just wanted to go through a couple of the updates that we've been working on. So first couple updates, we're just gonna kind of run through real quick to let everyone know where we're at. But towards the end of the presentation, I want to go through the shoring design guide. I put together just a table of contents that I was proposing, but really this whole council is about just getting everyone's input and really kind of collecting information in hopes of spreading it to, like Ron said, future generations, and just kind of coming up with standards and guides for this industry. So as far as the website goes, we have no plans for doing a separate shoring council website. Instead, we're going to be producing documents that we're going to run through SAIA, and they're going to review and put it on their resources page under shoring. So we're actually currently working on a checklist, and then hopefully in the future with the design binder or design guide, we can add that as well. As of now, though, there have been no updates to the web page that we have. So Ron and I, along with input from several members, have been putting together a shoring safety checklist. We've currently got it to 4 pages. Based on input from last year, we have split it into a technical or a qualified person section and a field section, in which you know, we can have someone out in the field who's just you know, responsible for installing the shoring, have certain items to look and check off on, and also someone like a technical or like a field superintendent or someone have certain portions of the shoring to review and check off on as well. Right now we have it in for review from SAIA. This is just kind of like a quick overview. We split into safety, design, dynamic loading, implementation, removal, and then separate sections for specific types of equipment, such as tubular welded frames, modular shoring, single post shores, adjustable timber, single post shores, and additional comments. However, what we want to throw out for discussion is whether or not we keep this to one document that's 4 pages, you know, that is reviewed by both the qualified person and the field person as well, and then just go back and forth with the same document to make sure that it passes multiple hands. Or if, you know, based on what you guys prefer, if you want to split it into 2 separate documents. Our main concern with that, though, is that one, we have 2 documents we have to keep track of, and there might not be the greatest connection between the 2. So we'd have to really make sure that there was a way that we can make sure that both are combined. But yeah, I wanted to kind of ask that question to the members here. And maybe, you know, if you guys are even interested in just reviewing, you can let us know and we can email you a copy of this as well. Yeah, does anyone have any comments on that?
Not so far.
Is everybody in agreement to trying to keep it into one document that's filled out by 2 different personnel?
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. One document.
Yeah, because I figure if you split them up, then only one of them is going to get filled out, and half of it's not going to get done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely agree with that.
Hey guys, would you then keep it though as you originally had it, as one document by section, or would you still split the document into the technical and the field segments? So that, in other words, the technical guy can fill out one after the other, as opposed to flipping through different pages.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to do is maybe the first section probably should be the technical, because that's a lot of those questions have to be answered before they even get to erecting the scaffold or the shoring.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the first section will be the technical for the not competent, but the qualified person. And then the second section would be for the competent person to fill in the field once all the technical stuff has been dealt with. And even then, actually, there are some technical questions that have to be answered during the pour. They have to double check the shores and everything. The technical guys still got some ongoing questions to answer while they're doing the pour. But I think that would be the first section, would be the qualified person section.
Okay.
All right, so just wanted to give a quick status update for the SP4 letter. The main issue is that the ACI SP4 Formwork for Concrete textbook eliminates the need to use continuity when designing shoring systems with manufactured components. So right now, the ACI does not intend on retracting the latest textbook. However, based on our conversations with them, they have requested that we send out a member to their meetings so that they can be a representative for future modifications to the textbook, or I believe they're producing a design guide shortly, and it can be potentially addressed in there as well. But I mean, as of now, until we get someone to go out to the meeting, we're tabling this topic, just because that seems to be the bottleneck, is getting someone out there. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any comments on this, but just wanted to put that out there for the update for this topic.
Have we lined up somebody to go to the meeting?
We have not.
No, we haven't reached out. I thought Jeff Jack would be the representative, but I don't know if he can play the dual role of being the head of the ACI and being a representative of the SAIA, but apparently he's not representing SAIA now. So I think probably the most logical person for attending one of these meetings would be one of the authors, one of the engineers.
Dave Glabe's not in the meeting. Why don't we just assign him?
That'll bloody teach him, won't it?
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah. So I guess we'll reach out to all the authors and see who would be available or willing to go to one of the ACI meetings, and find out when the next ACI meeting is.
Yeah, so we can follow up with that. That could be an action item for us, Ron. So
Yeah.
we'll review the letter and we'll shoot an email out to everyone and see if there's interest in doing that. Yeah, essentially until that point, though, we really can't make any progress on it.
I honestly don't think there's going to be much progress until they write a new design guide, or write a new standard, which might be several years from now.
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up with that and see if there's an interest in getting someone out there, at least so that they can be involved and keeping this topic going. So. All right, well, so I've been wanting to put together a shoring design guide, mainly for the purpose of developing industry standards and design approaches for shoring that falls outside of formwork applications. And that can be anywhere between like renovation projects or retrofits where there's an existing building that we need to modify, and we need to pick up certain members in order to do so. The goal of this would be to expand knowledge and expertise in this area, because there's a lot of companies out there doing this, but there really is no standard approach. There's no specific design or technical document that really applies to this type of work. And as a result of that, hopefully we can increase the use of standard scaffold equipment for these structural shoring. And so I put together just a rough outline of table of contents of what I would like to see in the design binder, but this is just proposed, and I want to shoot it out to everyone in the, who's here and everyone in the industry to get their input, see if there's topics they want to add and work with. And again, the goal is to have this be a working document that gets updated, every year or so as we have these meetings and as more important topics come up. So I'm just running through the table of contents. And we'd started off with important issues and questions. This would just introduce, what this shoring design guide is for, what applications it really is going to apply to, and any questions or frequently asked questions that would come up during this. I would want to run through types of equipment. Obviously, there's tons of different equipment out there, from frames to modular systems to, post shores, all different kinds of stuff, and various manufacturers within there. And so it would outline just general ranges and capacities of these types of systems, and just give the reader an idea of what type of equipment can be used for what applications. And then the goal would be to nail down factors of safety. Obviously, we have factors of safety from SSFI already that applies to formwork applications, but we'd want to try and carry this over here as well and kind of make it more standard for these types. I'd also want to run through loading requirements and height to base ratio. The goal would be to get, so when someone reads this, they would have a general understanding of what to look out for, when going into a shoring project, or if they're just unsure about certain topics, it would be a resource for them to reference. A big topic would be engineering requirements. This would really requires the input from members as well as we get everything developed, especially the current engineers in the industry. What projects should require engineering? There's projects that have incredibly complicated load paths. Maybe we want to include that in there, or projects that are relatively simple, and someone who's just familiar with design shoring can do it without an engineered stamp. And so we'd want to try to work through something standard that we can agree on is necessary for this industry. And down the line, it'd be ideal to get testing standards, and we would need to coordinate with the A11 committee as well. Again, I think, big picture, this would be like just a huge reference to go to for the shoring industry outside of formwork applications. And then finally, we try to have like a best practices section of this, which would go through various types of shoring projects, whether it's slab and beam support, needle beam or wall shoring, truss shoring, equipment and vehicle support platforms, column shoring, wall bracing, miscellaneous, all the different types of shoring that's out there. We'd have certain types of examples and best practices. I recognize that this is kind of it's a big topic. It's going to take a while to tackle, but it's great to start somewhere. And yeah, I kind of wanted to put it out for discussion, just on what you guys think. If there's any topics you guys would like to add, comments on what I put together already for this.
Again, part of what he's trying to accomplish is a lot of these shoring projects are reshoring or renovation projects. And there's a lot of instances we can use our shoring or our scaffolding systems or frame as shoring components. And I think there's a lot of situations where everybody's using just what they think is shoring versus using what's available to them, and knowing that they can use it as shoring. Just got to get the right engineering and calculations done.
Yeah, so does anyone have any comments on table of contents, any special topics or issues that should be added? No one? So my next, go ahead.
Mitchell, can you hear this? Gene Morgan, MDM. If you could separate it by categories that you're going to shore, cast in place versus precast versus reshoring, shoring during renovation, the different areas of shoring that you would follow through on each category.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll write that down. Yeah, I think the
Wanna
goal. Go ahead.
You may want to touch base with the SSFI because they may be working on testing standards.
Yes, definitely going to be coordinating with them.
The
Go ahead.
committee is currently working on the revision of the testing standards for shoring.
That's it. The A11 is also looking at testing standards, aren't they?
Yes, we
That
are.
is correct. Ron, this is Deanna. The A11 group are the new standards developing group. SSFI will not be working on the standards, so it'll be A11. And the
Right.
A11.2 is the testing and rating for shoring, and it's in a draft stage right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll reach
Yeah.
out to them. I think,
Yeah, we're definitely be coordinating with them on the standards that they produce. I think there's a couple. I mean, most of the engineers, I think, that we know are in that committee, and we'll be communicating with them as well to get their input. The goal would be to include what they, standards that they have, either as an attachment to this design guide or a specific section in the design guide as a reference. So one of the topics I want to go over is factors of safety on equipment platforms. I know it's probably a little bit more technical, but I've seen various approaches based on various companies that when you're designing an equipment platform, so any type of platform that pretty much has one access level for some type of equipment to either pass over or drive on, what factor of safety is appropriate for this type of application? For example, do you design it as an access platform with a 4-factor of safety, or do you design it as a shoring platform, which has different factors of safety? I want to pick some of the engineers here too.
yeah, I think there's that fall protection guide that Dave put forth allows us to kind of figure out whether it's a fall protection requirement for scaffolding or for formwork. That might help guide us on how to figure that out. But I think if it's shoring, your loads are going to be quite a bit higher than just access scaffold or access deck. So we have to determine which way to go on that as far as the safety factor. But
Tracy, speak up.
Mike, yes,
Yeah, I've been involved in a few things here lately, and such as platforms for elevators, and I suggested to the customer that in every case he has to get a set of stamped drawings based on the loads that he's planning on using, and there's all kinds of different support equipment out there, but I think that you probably should use a 4-to-1 safety factor, because you're going to have the equipment rolling across the platform or up the ramp or whatever. So I think there should be something put in writing that, hey, you need to design this way. And I mean, I think for any shoring job or any support platform that you're going to have some real heavy loads on, whether it be to support concrete or to support equipment, that you have a engineered stamp drawings on it.
I definitely agree. One of the main items that comes up with that is the 4-to-1 factor safety for access scaffold. It's a lot more difficult when you have multiple levels of scaffold to control the live load that's being placed on at any one time with various workers and everyone who's actually using the access scaffold, versus some of these platforms are designed for a specific piece of equipment that's going to be used at a specific time. And if that is the case, what is being loaded on that platform can be monitored, and make sure that we're having this forklift being placed on this platform at this time to move it into this structure, right? So because that load is so much higher than a standard access scaffold, and it's much more easy to control, can we then, are we comfortable then using the shoring factors of safety, because we know exactly what that load should be at that time. And then at a later time, we rate it for an access scaffold load that does have a 4 factor of safety. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, what's been happening is that there, you know, a lot of these big companies are having platforms designed that where they can set equipment on and then roll it into the place it needs to be. And, you know, so you've got some moment there with the equipment moving across it versus just a vertical load. So I think that all those things need to be taken in consideration when you come up with some kind of recommendations on the shoring.
Hey, Mitch.
Yeah.
That is one of the issues in the questions. As far as mobile equipment on the platform, if is answered yes, then it is to be presented or engineered for that force. The other thing to consider is the minimum requirement for shoring capacity, and I've found the questionnaire, is 100 pounds per square foot, which a light duty scaffold is about 25 pounds per square foot. So
Tracy,
a 4-to-1 right there.
Tracy,
And then a half on top of that.
When deciding what safety factor to use, it boils down to the main purpose of the platform. Is it an elevated work platform? If it's an elevated work platform for people or equipment, either one, it is considered scaffold and is required to have a 4-to-1 safety factor of scaffold on it.
What about a time, like say you have a pit or something that is level with the ground and you're just leveling out that area? Is that elevated work platform because it's referenced to
are they going to, you putting that platform in there so they can work on top of it? If they're working on top of that platform, then it is considered scaffold. If you're putting it in there so you could walk across it to get somewhere else, there's a possibility that it is not scaffold.
Gotcha.
And Tracy, correct me if I'm right, if you're gonna pour concrete on it, even if people are working on it, it's still a formwork, right?
Because the main purpose of it is to support the concrete, or the load that you're pouring on it. So so then it's shoring, because the main purpose of it is for shoring application, even though people are working on it to put the deck in place and put the rebar and everything up. That is still considered shoring, even though there are people up there.
So Tracy, what happens if you've got these big concrete buggies that are rolling across the platform to dump the concrete onto the support? They get back to 4-to-1?
It's 4-to-1 if there are people on that platform working. If it is, like I said, if it's just like a bridge or a walkway over to a different area where you're pouring it on there, then that you could use a shoring load on it, because its purpose is not as a temporary work platform. It is so that you can get over to your work.
Yeah, what I was saying, they get these concrete buggies and they drive them. The support is there, and they're driving the concrete buggy across the support platform, the shoring platform, to dump it into an area that's going to be, formed out. So you got that moment of motion.
It would be a shoring safety factor, but you have to take into account the lateral load that the buggy puts on there.
Okay.
And extra weight.
So when put to an engineer, that would either require additional bracing or tie into a structure to resist the lateral force, correct?
Yeah, usually.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could potentially clarify as well in the design guide or design binder for this type of shoring. These questions do come up even within our own firm, so I'm sure they come up, with other people as well. So,
but do we have to extra clarify that? because I gotta agree with Tracy here. That is pretty straightforward, explained in the OSHA guidelines. As soon as you work of it, it's clearly a work platform, and it's 4-to-1. Even if you put 5 I-beams underneath it and put a plank over it, the I-beam can hold a shitload more than you actually need, but it's a 4-to-1 safety factor in that case. And it's the same thing on forming. So you want to just spell it out in a 2-paragraph, or you can leave it with OSHA.
Yeah, I mean, any type of clarification. The goal would be for to have someone to go back and reference this. I mean, OSHA is not known to be the clearest.
I was going to say, I guess the goal is to not leave it to OSHA.
Yeah. So.
Then we should have done it before OSHA and not after OSHA, and that's the problem here. Everything is done post OSHA.
OSHA doesn't specify a factor of safety for shoring, do they, Tracy?
Yeah, for one.
No, OSHA doesn't. That's in the ANSI things spell out the factors of safety for the other stuff. OSHA only covers the factor of safety for scaffold.
Scaffold, right.
Yeah.
The factor of safety for shoring has been established by the manufacturers.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's based on what we've seen. You know, a lot of it is a 2.5-to-1 for towers, 3 on post shores is typically what we see. But I think it would be good to get everyone in agreement and have this outlined along with the testing standards once we talk with the A11 committee. So I just think it would be useful for those getting into the industry and those who've even been here a while. They wanted to double check certain things.
You know, there's probably 10 different types of shoring out there now that with the aluminum shoring and some of the 50 kip stuff that they're coming up with and all that, that's, you know, comes into play too, as to what type of equipment you're using. Even cup lock, you know, cup lock was originally manufactured out of England. I'm sure most people know. Shoring of Great Britain was SGB, and that was imported into the U.S. and actually can be used for shoring or scaffolding now. But yeah, it's just a delineation whether it's aluminum or, you know, the different type of leg loads and stuff like that. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no,
the factor of safety still determines the loading for depending on its application.
Right.
Sounds like an engineering question, not one for us sales guys.
All right. Well, I mean, that was the main items I want to go through. I mean, if there's no, you know, main concerns with the current table of contents, it doesn't mean it can't change in the future. I'm going to be coordinating with other engineers and other members, you know, once we jump into this, getting input. I think, Ron, you maybe had some input about the fall protection too, that we really needed to get some members of the industry to help on and pitch in on.
I was supposed to start work on fall protection for shoring, and I haven't really gotten around to pushing a lot of that. I am asking members of the industry to put some input, some pictures of different situations they've had during shoring and fall protection. I know, Gene, you're talking about those horizontal lifelines over, between columns when you guys set shoring.
Yes.
And I haven't really got started on this. Is there anything you guys can provide? Any kind of program that you guys are using currently?
Well, it's primarily what we see being used. It's not something we're doing. It's something that the concrete subcontractors are doing, where they will install a vertical member into the column and they'll attach a horizontal lifeline to it. But it depends on the type of concrete structure that it is. If it's a one-way pan system, or they have an open grid of decking below that they're working off of. And the same with the bridge girder guys, where they're installing precast girders, where they'll install horizontal lifelines along the girders, you know, as a fall safety measure. So it's usually those type of people that are using that type of safety equipment.
All right, well, I'll work on getting something started on that. I just haven't had the time recently. If anybody else has got input or any situations or examples of fall protection for shoring, I invite you to please send some information over my way.
Ron, many years ago, Dave Glave and I chaired a supportive scaffold council, and we addressed that issue. I have to go back to my memory bank, but there was a big issue on the as far as that safe access on shoring and that whole deal. And maybe we can bring some of that back around. But it was at the end of the day, I don't think we ever got the question answered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody wants to use no fall protection and call it leading edge and monitoring system. But that doesn't really fly with OSHA anymore, I don't think, most cases. So I know the industry needs some guidance, and some kind of guideline would be helpful. All right, is there anything else we need to go over, Mitch?
No, that was all with the updates and topics that we had to discuss. Does anyone have questions?
Other than that, those are the projects we're working on. We don't have any new projects we've been asked to provide other than us creating this shoring guideline. So if anybody has any suggestions for the shoring committee, and I guess I'll go reach out to Frank. Is Frank heading the SSFI now?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I do.
Yes, how you doing?
Oh, I'm sitting here in my underwear in my office.
Are you a senator?
Probably eating cookies.
That was a whole lot
Usually
more
I do
information than we
cookies.
needed.
I'm actually in the office.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, Ron, just wanted to give you guys an update on the Code of Safe Practices that was being translated into Spanish. There was a little bit of a hiccup with the translators. I guess one of the people that was supposed to be translating it didn't pay their dues as an ATI, and so we're not going to use him anymore. And so we've, I guess, Jackie, you got an update on that?
Yes, I've actually heard back from both of my contacts. I just need to look through the emails and see what they said. I know that there were a couple edits on them, and I'll get those over to you as soon as we wrap up here today.
Okay. Okay, good, thanks. So hopefully, Ron and Mitch, we should have the Code of Safe Practices for sure in Spanish as well as in English up on the website in the not too distant future.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions? I guess not. Thank you all for attending, and I guess that's all we have for today.
Thank you, Ron, Mitch.
Thank you, guys.
Good seeing everybody.
Thank you, Ron.
I'll be careful out there.
Yep.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, that ends all of our meetings for today. So if there's nothing else, I really don't have any more announcements for today. So we will be starting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central Time with the Plank and Platform Council meeting. And I wish everybody a good evening, and we will resume again tomorrow. That sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody.